In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 things I wish I knew about breastfeeding before the start of my own breastfeeding journey. Hey, it's Morgan, and welcome to the Passable Parent channel. I've been a pediatric nurse for the past 10 years specializing in early childhood development. And I'm also the mom of a toddler and expecting baby number 2. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss out on any future videos. And make sure to comment down below if you have any questions. I love to hear from all of you. Thank you so much for your support. When I had my first baby, I had no idea how much of a skill breastfeeding truly is. Even as a nurse, I still didn't understand how much work and how much of a skill it takes. And like all other skills, it takes practice and time to learn it. While I wish it had felt instinctual, natural, and easy, it was anything but that. From figuring out positions, latching, sore nipples, clogged ducts, and knowing when to feed, breastfeeding felt like learning a completely different language, being dropped off in a foreign country with no way to communicate. The challenges and struggles I face with breastfeeding is one of the main reasons I decided to put myself out there and start this channel. Even as a nurse with my years of experience, it was hard. Many of you have reached out to me and shared with me your similar struggles. So if you're a mama watching and going through the trenches right now, please know you are not alone. If you're an expecting mama watching, I hope this video and all my other videos on breastfeeding help make your journey a little bit easier. The first tip that I have for you is that breastfeeding is a personal choice. It's important to remember that at the end of each day, it doesn't matter whether you choose to breastfeed, bottle feed, or do some combination of both. What matters is that your child is happy, healthy, well-nourished, and fed. Some women choose not to breastfeed for a variety of different reasons, and others may want to breastfeed but cannot produce the amount of breast milk that they need to. It's perfectly acceptable not to breastfeed, and it's okay to quit or want to switch to formula if it doesn't work out for you. There is absolutely no shame in not breastfeeding as long as your child is healthy. I hope that my channel can be a place where all mothers are celebrated, whether they choose to breast or bottle feed. Being a mother is one of the most amazing blessings, but it's also one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. We are all faced with so many choices for our children, and we just want the best for them. It's easy to question every choice we make and wonder if we are enough. Mama, you are more than enough. Next time you see a mama breastfeeding or bottle feeding, tell them what an amazing job they are doing. Support it is best, and having a community and people to celebrate our differences is best during this vulnerable and challenging time. The second thing I want to share with you is that I wish I had known that breastfeeding is uncomfortable in the beginning, and it's difficult. Nothing truly prepares you 100% for the journey. I wish more women talked about how difficult it is and the discomforts that many women go through in the beginning weeks especially. It helps encourage them so that when they go through this difficult time, they know they are not alone. They know that there's nothing wrong with their bodies, that this is normal, this is to be expected. In my experience, women would just tell me it was hard, that I should do it for X amount of time, but then not really talk to me about how and ways to help make it easier. If you're struggling and have sore nipples or are in pain right now, and this whole breastfeeding thing just doesn't come naturally to you, please know you are not alone, and make sure to check out all my other videos on breastfeeding, especially my video on surviving cluster feeding and those first weeks of breastfeeding. I talk a lot about different products and tips that help me through those beginning weeks. The third tip I wish I had known is to know where you can ask for help. I had to figure this one out on the fly as I didn't have a lot of friends or family members who were breastfeeding at the time to turn to. Taking a breastfeeding class before you give birth actually can be incredibly helpful. These classes provide invaluable information for expectant moms to be. There are free classes you can even take online. Look at websites like Eventbrite, which I will link down below for you in the description box. Your local hospital or birthing center may also offer courses you can take to help you prepare. You also can reach out to local lactation consultants before you have the baby and find out things that you can do to help prepare yourself. There also might be local centers near you. There are a few near me that are for women who are pregnant or postpartum. They offer pumping classes before you have baby, learning how to use that breast pump. They offer all kinds of services with lactation consultants and wellness coaches, the whole thing, and I cannot recommend them enough. So make sure to do a little Google research and see what's in your area, what services are available for you. They have courses for expecting parents, and these are the things that you're really going to want to know. It's not just, you know, what do I do when I'm in labor? It's everything that happens after. It's so much information to take in, so I highly recommend checking out what resources are available to you in your area. When possible, take your spouse, your partner, your mother, your sister, your best friend with you. By having someone else there with you when you seek out these classes or courses, it will help make that experience more enjoyable. You might feel more comfortable, and that person might be really good to remind you of some of the things that you learned, because it's just all so much information to take in. Also, you're going to be really sleep deprived after you have babies, so having a partner or somebody, a support person, to help remind you of those things is really helpful when you're sleep deprived. While you're still in the hospital, ask to speak to a lactation consultant. They are free and available to you during your hospitalization. I think I asked to speak to multiple lactation consultants while I was in the hospital, because I really wanted to get this breastfeeding thing down. Even as someone who is a nurse and helps others with breastfeeding, I myself needed to ask for help. So there is no shame in it. Lactation consultants at the hospital will be able to provide one-on-one advice and demonstrate proper latching techniques to you and various ways to hold your baby and more. So even as a nurse, I needed lactation consultants to help me, because sometimes getting somebody else to get their eyes on the situation and view your nursing from a different angle can be really helpful for finding that good latch. It's also really important to make sure to ask at the hospital before you leave if they have a support group for breastfeeding moms or a phone number for you before you leave the hospital, because that is all information you might want to take down. Lactation consultants at my hospital met via Zoom every Thursday with breastfeeding mothers for a support group, and it gave me encouragement and courage to keep going through those first few weeks, knowing that other mamas were experiencing the same things as me. And if you have more questions at any time, there are resources such as local Facebook groups and the La Leche League. The fourth tip and thing I think that every mama should know is to drain each breast of milk. This can help increase your milk supply, and make sure you rotate and switch sides when you're nursing. Your baby most likely will nurse more often on one side during a breastfeeding session. You can think of this as their dinner, and then by the time you offer the other breast, they will nurse less. You can think of this as their dessert. So it's important to start off on the side they nurse less on in the next breastfeeding session. So you're gonna start with that dessert side next time. Make sure you offer both breasts, because this helps prevent becoming engorged, getting too full of that milk, and it keeps up your milk supply. If your baby doesn't nurse as much on the second breast during a nursing session, you can pump that breast to start building up a freezer stash in the event that you ever have to be away from your baby or are returning to work. While how much you need to feed on each side varies from person to person, I found that I personally needed to let my baby nurse for 12 to 15 minutes on one side before switching. Usually nursing on one side filled him up, and he would only nurse a little from the other breast in a nursing session. I would always start with that last breast that he nursed less on the next nursing session. There are a ton of great apps out there to keep track of which side you last nurse on, and the one that I used was actually the Hatch app. I used this app because I ended up purchasing and loving the Hatch baby changing pad scale, which I will link in the description box below for you. I used this scale because I was able to keep track of my son's weights at home, and it also allowed me to keep track of which side I last nursed on in this app that came with the scale, which was really helpful, and knowing his weights was really reassuring, especially if you are exclusively breastfeeding, because you don't have a way to measure how much milk is going into baby, other than you just want to make sure that they're making at least, those 6 to 8 wet diapers in a 24-hour period. The only way you really can measure is by making sure they're making enough wet diapers in a 24-hour period, making sure you don't see any signs of dehydration on your baby's body, and that they're still feeding and nursing well. But if you're exclusively breastfeeding, you have no way to verify how many ounces of breast milk your baby is getting. So what really matters is their weights and their wet diapers. So I really loved that, and I was a huge fan of it. But if you are someone who's not a huge fan of using apps and it's just too much to keep track of, too overwhelming, another really easy trick I have for you is to just put a hair scrunchie on the wrist of the side that you left off with. So if you nursed mostly on your right side and then just a little bit on the left, put the hair scrunchie on your left wrist so that you know, oh, I'm starting with my left breast during the next nursing session. The fifth thing that I think every breastfeeding mama should know is to frequently scan for lumps or sore spots on your breast. So just palpating your breast every now and then and making sure you're not feeling any lumps or like tender areas on your breast. I learned really early on to take seriously any lumps that were sore or not going away. Usually they were the start of a clogged milk duct, which can later lead to mastitis. Mastitis is an infection that may require antibiotics. Make sure to check out my video and all about clogged milk ducts and remedies and treatments that you can do at home to avoid that mastitis. Whenever I noticed one, I would immediately get to work on removing a clog. What I found most effective was to massage the area, moving inwards towards the nipple, either while my baby was nursing or while taking a hot shower. I also would have my baby feed a little extra on the painful breast that day, which is recommended, and I would switch up our breastfeeding positions. La Leche League recommends you feed with the baby's chin pointing toward the sore spot or the clogged milk duct. And if you haven't already, again, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future videos. Hit that subscribe button and that little alarm bell so you don't miss out on anything. I have tons of great stuff already out there and coming soon on breastfeeding, postpartum, and early childhood development. The sixth thing I wish I knew about breastfeeding was to avoid underwires or tight bras, especially in those first few weeks, even sometimes months in the beginning. You don't want to be wearing an underwire or a super tight fitting bra. It usually takes the first 3 months or about 12 weeks for a woman's breast milk to regulate. So keep that in mind with these tighter fitting clothing and bras. You might want to take it easy, find a more comfortable bra like a nursing bra or a sports bra that you really like without an underwire. For me, those tight fitted bras actually led to some painful lumps and clogged milk ducts in those first 12 weeks with my son. So that's why that's one of my top tips for you. I soon learned that I could only wear those loose cloth nursing bras or those sports bras, which I'm gonna link for you below, because those lumps became so painful and sore. And when I didn't wear those bras with the underwire and wore the nice nursing bras and the ones without the underwire, I really didn't have any pain and I saw way less frequency of clogs. Really, they were virtually non-existent once I switched to the bras without the underwire. The seventh thing I wish I knew about breastfeeding was to prepare for lots of potential leaking of breast milk. Your breast may never leak at all. Every woman is different, but for me, leaking happened frequently in those first few months and even began towards the end of my pregnancy. I was caught off guard by this, and I highly recommend machine washable organic cotton nursing pads that you can stick into your bra. I also recommend, if you're not leaving the house, to actually collect that milk that's leaking. So what I found really helpful and what decreased the amount of leaking breast milk that I had is that when I nursed my baby, since you can only nurse on one side at a time, I would attach the Haka, which I'll link down below for you. That Haka pump is amazing. I would attach that to the opposite breast that I was nursing on, and I would collect that extra milk that was leaking out, because many times when you nurse, that's when a lot of the milk leaks out. For some women, it really just depends. Every woman's different. All milk production is totally different, so please don't compare yourself to others. But you can freeze, even just an ounce you can freeze for that freezer stash. So whatever you have, freeze it. It's liquid gold and you work so hard for it. So using that Haka really helps with building up that stash. You also can wear breast shells, which are sold by Haka. I can link them down below for you as well, and some other companies that I like that sell breast shells, and those also collect the breast milk. And you can wear them in your bra instead of those cotton organic nursing pads. It just depends what you're comfortable with, but that will be a way to also collect that milk that's not that big Haka that you stick on. Many women don't know about the leaking milk, and they don't know about the letdown process when the baby is nursing. That's why I want to tell you about it now in case you didn't know about it, and just that way you're informed and you know that you can do things to actually collect that milk and freeze it. I also would leak at night, and I think that's another thing that many women don't know. So I actually bought some blue pads or Chucks pads, and they can be thrown away after they get soiled, but you can put them down on your bed sheets to protect your bed sheets when you leak milk at night. These blue pads or Chucks pads are also really great for putting down on the changing table because they will save you a ton of laundry with babies. So I love these blue pads. I'll link them down below for you. They're great for mom and they're great for baby too. The most important thing to remember is that breastfeeding has a huge learning curve to it. Like many other things in life, it is a learned skill, and you and your baby will adjust at your own pace. No two journeys are the same. Do what works best for you and don't be concerned with what others have to say. You should be proud of yourself. You are doing an amazing job, and I wish you the best of luck on your breastfeeding journey. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos on all things child development, breastfeeding, parenthood, and giving your baby the best start possible in life. And if you have any questions, make sure to comment them down below for me. I hope to see you in the next video.